In the sprawling, cacophonous heart of Lagos, a city that never sleeps, where every street corner tells a story of ambition, struggle, and survival. Horns blare incessantly, motorcycles weave dangerously through traffic jams, street vendors shout over the hum of danfos, and neon signs flicker against the dusky sky like pulses of unrelenting energy. This city, chaotic and magnificent, is the backdrop for a story that intertwines love, deceit, wealth, and betrayal, where every decision carries weight, and every relationship can shift in an instant. Aisha, a young woman from Surulere, moves through this urban labyrinth with practiced agility, her mind always calculating, always aware. She is striking, intelligent, and fiercely independent, balancing multiple hustles, managing a fledgling tech startup, freelancing for international clients, and maintaining family ties. Her apartment, modest but meticulously organized, reflects a personality shaped by Lagos itself, resilient, sharp, adaptable. She dreams not just of survival, but of thriving, of escaping the limitations of her environment, of carving a place for herself in a world where opportunity is scarce but ambition is abundant. Across town in the glittering streets of Victoria Island, Kelechi cultivates an image that commands attention. Luxury cars glide silently over smooth asphalt, private restaurants cater to his whims, and his social media exudes sophistication and wealth. To the casual observer, he is the epitome of success. Every photograph, every caption, every curated post is a tool of influence, a carefully designed illusion meant to captivate and manipulate. But behind the facade lies a complex web of calculated charm, financial maneuvering, and social manipulation, crafted with the precision of a master strategist. Their worlds collide through the digital corridors of Instagram. Kelechi comments on Aisha's design posts, initiating a conversation that quickly escalates into late-night video calls filled with laughter, intimate revelations, and whispered dreams. He speaks of overseas trips, penthouses overlooking oceans she has only seen in magazines, and investments multiplying faster than she can imagine. Lagos, with all its chaos, becomes a distant backdrop. The city's noise, its relentless rhythm, fades into insignificance when juxtaposed with the intensity of their connection. Aisha is enthralled. To her, Kelechi represents more than a man. He embodies possibility, escape, and the tantalizing promise of wealth intertwined with love. Her friends notice the shift immediately, the long absences from hangouts, secretive smiles, and growing obsession with Kelechi's digital presence. They warn her, "It's too perfect. Be careful." But Aisha dismisses their concerns. Lagos has taught her to seize opportunities, to trust her instincts, to navigate risk. Perhaps perfection exists, she reasons, and she is willing to believe. The romance accelerates. Breakfast deliveries from street vendors, unexpected gifts, and elaborate virtual tours of mansions deepen her attachment. Kelechi shares screenshots of bank accounts and investment portfolios, each more impressive than the last, reinforcing the illusion of legitimacy. When he mentions a temporary cash flow problem for a family business, Aisha, driven by both love and ambition, transfers part of her savings. In her mind, this is not just money. It is trust, devotion, and a tangible investment in their shared future. Meanwhile, Lagos continues its relentless rhythm. Crowded markets in Surulere, the busy nightlife of Victoria Island, the ceaseless honking of vehicles, and the faint bass of distant music all underscore the personal drama unfolding. The city is both participant and indifferent observer. Aisha's private world is shaped by digital whispers and curated interactions, yet it exists within a broader tapestry of urban life, a city where millions chase dreams, fortunes, and connections every day. Gradually, cracks appear. Small inconsistencies in Kelechi's stories, vague excuses, delayed responses, and contradictions in his supposed wealth begin to emerge. Aisha notices, but the strength of desire and hope keeps her invested. She begins a subtle investigation, cross-referencing details, tracking timelines, and noting discrepancies. Her analytical mind, honed by years of navigating Lagos's complex social and professional networks, starts to sense patterns of deception. Tension mounts when a new figure enters the narrative. Tunde, an anonymous contact claiming intimate knowledge of Kelechi's past. He hints at manipulation, fraud, and betrayal. Aisha hesitates, the decision heavy with potential consequences. Ignoring it risks further deception. Pursuing it could shatter the narrative she has built in her mind. The pulse of Lagos seems to mirror her own uncertainty, the city restless, alive, unpredictable. Streetlights flicker, generators hum in the distance, and traffic flows as if reflecting her inner turmoil. As she contemplates her next move, additional anomalies arise. A suspicious email, a mismatched bank statement, a delayed delivery. Each small event contributes to an escalating sense of unease. Aisha starts connecting dots. Previous lovers, business associates, social media accounts, all pieces of a puzzle hinting at a larger scheme. The suspense intensifies as she realizes that Kelechi's persona may be more elaborate than she ever imagined. The emotional stakes are amplified by Lagos itself. The city is a character in its own right, vibrant, chaotic, beautiful, dangerous. The wealth of Victoria Island contrasts starkly with the humble streets of Surulere, highlighting themes of inequality, ambition, and aspiration. Every interaction, every choice, every message carries weight not just for Aisha, but for the intricate social ecosystem she inhabits. Aisha stands on her balcony, the Lagos skyline ablaze with lights and movement. The hum of generators, the faint wail of a distant siren, the chatter of street vendors below, all form a living soundtrack to her dilemma. Her phone buzzes, a message from Tunde, insisting on revealing the truth. Her fingers hover over the screen, heart racing, mind torn between hope, love, and the terrifying possibility of betrayal. The city watches silently, indifferent, as the first ripple of a storm begins to form. The story is no longer just a romance. It is a labyrinth of ambition, desire, and deception. Every choice Aisha makes will reverberate through the urban landscape of Lagos, leaving traces of heartbreak, revelations, and consequences that will unfold across the coming parts. The stage is set, the players in motion, and the tension is palpable. In this city of millions, where opportunity and danger coexist, nothing is as it seems, and every secret carries a cost. Aisha in her compact Surulere apartment, the city outside alive with its usual chaos, Danfo buses screaming through narrow streets, hawkers calling out their wares, the faint rumble of traffic over uneven roads. Her mind is a whirlpool of conflicting thoughts. The message from Tunde lingers, its implications heavy. Should she confront Kelechi, risking exposure and potential fallout, or quietly continue her investigation, piecing together the puzzle in secrecy? Every choice carries consequences, and in Lagos, consequences are magnified. Her laptop hums softly on the desk as she dives into research. Social media accounts, business records, transaction histories, every detail she had previously ignored now takes on critical significance. Patterns begin to emerge. Certain payments vanish as if they were never made, addresses appear fraudulent, and digital footprints contradict Kelechi's carefully curated image. The careful veneer of perfection he projected begins to crack. Meanwhile, in Victoria Island, Kelechi's luxurious apartment overlooks the lagoon, shimmering with reflections of city lights and the restless ocean beyond. He speaks on the phone with an unknown associate, his voice smooth, measured, almost soothing, yet beneath it lies tension. The carefully orchestrated illusion of wealth, charm, and control has cracks too, unseen by most but noticed by Aisha. Kelechi is aware that someone has begun to question, to investigate, and for the first time, he feels the pressure of the consequences he has long evaded. As Aisha continues her investigation, she uncovers photographs, old receipts, and cryptic messages hinting at Kelechi's entanglements with other women and suspicious business dealings. A shadow of betrayal forms, sharp and unrelenting. Lagos, in all its vibrancy, becomes a backdrop for an intensifying drama, one where the stakes are love, wealth, and reputation. The streets below seem to whisper secrets, the night alive with potential revelations. The tension heightens when Aisha receives a mysterious package outside her apartment. Inside, carefully wrapped, are letters and documents detailing Kelechi's past relationships, investments that never existed, and transfers of money she had previously made under the guise of trust and love. Her pulse quickens, each revelation a dagger twisting into the narrative she had believed. Lagos energy mirrors her turmoil. The honking horns, the distant music, the smell of grilled suya from a nearby vendor. Every sensory input amplifies the intensity of the moment. Despite shock and hurt, Aisha's analytical mind takes over. She decides to confront him indirectly, planting a subtle trap through digital communication. She crafts a message that hints at knowledge of his duplicity, careful not to expose her investigation entirely, while gauging his reaction. Every response, every delay, every digital footprint is scrutinized. The suspense is palpable, an invisible chess game played across screens and city streets. Simultaneously, Kelechi senses a shift. A single misstep, a delayed response, a change in tone, could unravel months of manipulation. He deploys charm, weaving words carefully to maintain control, to keep Aisha engaged and unaware of the full extent of his schemes. Yet cracks appear. Subtle slips in stories, small contradictions, and a nervousness he rarely exhibits betray the tension lurking beneath his polished exterior. The plot thickens with the introduction of a new player, Ngozi, a former associate of Kelechi who has her own grievances. Her motives are murky, but she possesses critical information about Kelechi's dealings. Through discreet messages, cryptic warnings, and veiled threats, she inserts herself into the narrative, adding layers of complexity and heightening suspense. Lagos, with its vibrant nightlife, business hubs, and hidden alleyways, becomes a character itself, a maze in which secrets are uncovered, alliances are tested, and danger lurks in every corner. Aisha arranges a discreet meeting with Tunde in a quiet cafe tucked away from the main roads. The tension is almost tangible. The smell of roasted coffee beans, the distant chatter of patrons, the hum of generators, all contributing to a soundtrack of suspense. Tunde hands over documents, screenshots, and personal accounts, revealing a network of deceit far larger than Aisha had anticipated. Kelechi is not just charming, he is manipulative, financially sophisticated, and willing to exploit every emotional weakness for gain. The depth of betrayal stings, yet it fuels Aisha's determination to confront the truth. Back in Victoria Island, Kelechi senses the net tightening. He consults with his inner circle, assessing the risk, recalibrating strategies. The narrative he had controlled for so long is now vulnerable. Every move must be calculated, every word precise, because one misstep could shatter his carefully constructed empire of charm and deception. Lagos continues to pulse outside his windows, unaware, indifferent, but inside, tension simmers like molten metal ready to erupt. The city itself seems to conspire with suspense. Motorbikes dart across streets, neon signs flicker against dusky skies, and the faint scent of street food mingles with the night air. Lagos chaos mirrors the internal turmoil of the characters. Love tangled with betrayal, ambition interwoven with deceit, and a relentless passage of time that will soon demand choices and consequences. Aisha sets up surveillance, using every tool at her disposal, apps, cameras, financial trackers, to anticipate Kelechi's next moves. She discovers patterns in his travel, inconsistencies in his story, and glimpses of a life carefully hidden. Her emotions oscillate between fury, hurt, and strategic calculation. Every heartbeat is amplified by suspense. Every message from Kelechi is analyzed for tone, timing, and intent. The audience is drawn deeper into the labyrinthine narrative, compelled to anticipate each revelation. Tension peaks when Aisha receives an unexpected invitation from Kelechi, a private dinner at an upscale location in Ikoyi. Is it a genuine gesture or a trap? Lagos traffic, its dense streets, and the glittering facade of wealth become part of the story, adding context and stakes. The reader or viewer senses that any choice made in the city, with its mix of tradition, modernity, and raw energy, carries amplified consequences. The act closes with Aisha stepping into a black SUV, the streets of Lagos stretching before her like a living canvas of unpredictability. Every honk, every pedestrian, every neon sign contributes to the atmosphere of suspense. The city is alive, watching, indifferent yet omnipresent, as she heads toward an uncertain confrontation with Kelechi. The narrative threads, love, betrayal, wealth, and ambition, are interwoven tightly, promising twists, revelations, and consequences in the parts that follow. The story has shifted from a simple digital romance to a complex psychological game. The stakes are higher, the risks greater, and the tension more palpable. Lagos, in all its chaos and vibrancy, is no longer just a backdrop. It is an active participant, amplifying suspense and anticipation. Every choice Aisha makes will echo through the city, affecting relationships, wealth, and the ultimate revelation of truth. The city of Lagos stretched beneath Aisha as she navigated its congested streets, the neon glow of billboards reflecting off puddles from an earlier rain. Each turn seemed familiar yet charged with potential danger. The rhythm of honking danfos and motorbikes was a constant reminder that life here moved fast, often without warning. Her mind raced, connecting threads of evidence, hidden messages, and whispered secrets she had uncovered in the past days. Kelechi's charming exterior, once so alluring, now appeared fractured, vulnerable, yet dangerous in its unpredictability. She arrived at a quiet cafe tucked between tall buildings in Victoria Island, the kind of place where privacy was both valued and assumed. The air smelled of roasted coffee, lightly spiced pastries, and the faint tang of diesel from nearby traffic. Tunde sat at a corner table, the dim light casting half his face in shadow. He handed over a folder thick with documents, financial records, photographs, screenshots, and messages that hinted at Kelechi's manipulations. Each page peeled back layers of deceit, revealing a man skilled in controlling perception, weaving illusions, and exploiting trust. Meanwhile, Kelechi lingered in his apartment, the city lights shimmering across the lagoon outside his floor-to-ceiling windows. He sensed a shift, a tightening of control he had never experienced before. His fingers tapped nervously on the edge of a mahogany desk, scanning through text threads, bank statements, and contacts, recalculating strategies with precision. There was no panic, only awareness that the game he had long controlled was beginning to tip in unforeseen directions. Aisha studied the documents carefully, noting inconsistencies in Kelechi's story. Transfers he claimed were for business purposes now traced to personal accounts. Encounters he had described to friends conflicted with photographic evidence. Her heart pounded not only with the sting of betrayal but also with the thrill of discovery. Lagos, with its endless bustle, seemed to hum in alignment with her heightened senses. The distant music from a roadside bar, the chatter of street vendors, the occasional siren, all forming a backdrop that amplified her resolve. She decided to orchestrate a subtle confrontation, one that would test Kelechi without revealing the full scope of her knowledge. A text was crafted, indirect yet pointed, implying awareness of his duplicity while leaving room for interpretation. The minutes that followed felt stretched, every notification chime on her phone a drumbeat of suspense. Across town, Kelechi's expression shifted as he read her message, the charming facade momentarily slipping to reveal unease. Ngozi, a figure from Kelechi's past, emerged as an unpredictable variable. Her motives were not entirely clear, but the messages she sent hinted at grievances, secrets, and opportunities to shift the balance of power. A single misstep, a careless word, and the carefully constructed narrative could collapse. Lagos' labyrinthine streets and bustling districts became a silent witness to the psychological duel unfolding, amplifying every decision and reaction. The tension escalated when Aisha noticed patterns in Kelechi's movements, trips to secluded locations, late-night meetings, and unusual financial activity. She tracked these discreetly, coordinating observations with Tunde, ensuring that every lead was documented. With each revelation, the city itself seemed to participate in the drama. Every neon reflection, every honking horn, every crowd moving through the streets mirrored the chaos and unpredictability of human emotion and ambition. Aisha arranged a meeting with Ngozi under the guise of casual friendship. In a dimly lit lounge, away from the busy streets of Lagos, they exchanged information with subtlety and caution. Ngozi revealed hidden alliances, financial transfers, and encounters that painted Kelechi as far more manipulative than anyone had imagined. The network of deceit was complex, tangled with romance, ambition, and greed. Each detail strengthened Aisha's resolve and sharpened her strategy for the confrontation she knew was inevitable. Simultaneously, Kelechi sensed the tightening scrutiny. He moved carefully, revisiting old alliances, recalibrating business fronts, and adjusting personal interactions. Every step was calculated, every word measured. The luxury of his Lagos apartment became both a sanctuary and a cage, the city's heartbeat outside mocking the fragile illusion of control he had built. The suspense reached a peak when Aisha received an invitation from Kelechi to a high-profile charity gala in Ikoyi. The setting was opulent, the attendees a mix of Nigeria's elite, influencers, and socialites. Every element, the architecture, the music, the subtle glances exchanged in the crowd, was a stage for the psychological chess game unfolding between the two. Aisha's mind raced. Was this an olive branch, a trap, or a test? The city's pulse outside mirrored her anticipation, every street lamp and honking car adding weight to the impending encounter. As she prepared for the gala, her thoughts oscillated between caution and strategy. Each piece of evidence, each observation, each whispered warning from Tunde and Ngozi was catalogued and analysed. Lagos, with all its vibrancy, unpredictability, and chaos, served as both backdrop and catalyst, a living, breathing character in the drama. The night of the gala arrived, and the city glittered with lights, reflections dancing across the lagoon and high-rise glass facades. Aisha entered with poise, her senses acutely attuned to every interaction. Kelechi was there, exuding charm and confidence, unaware that his meticulously crafted illusions were on the verge of being dismantled. Every movement, every word, every glance carried weight, and the tension between truth and deception crackled through the air like static electricity. In the shadows of Lagos elite, the psychological game intensified. Alliances, betrayals, and revelations intertwined as Aisha maneuvered through conversations, gestures, and subtle signals. Kelechi's responses, though practiced, betrayed small cracks, hesitations, fleeting glances, and micro-expressions that revealed the pressure mounting. By the close of this segment, the story had transformed from intrigue and investigation to a high-stakes dance of manipulation and revelation. Love, betrayal, wealth, and ambition intertwined seamlessly, leaving the audience poised for the next phase of suspense, plotting, and unexpected twists as the narrative continued to unfold across Lagos' vibrant, chaotic streets. The Lagos night deepened, swallowing the city in a cloak of humid darkness, punctuated only by neon signs, the distant roar of traffic, and the occasional laughter spilling from rooftop bars. Aisha moved through the streets with deliberate stealth, a phantom among the throngs of people, navigating the labyrinthine alleys of Ikeja and the crowded sidewalks of Victoria Island. Every step, every flicker of motion in the peripheral vision of passers-by was accounted for, measured, and calculated. She was no longer merely chasing information. She was orchestrating a sequence of events that would reshape the power structures of Lagos and expose ambitions that had festered beneath the city's glittering surface. Kelechi, in his private office overlooking the lagoon, believed himself untouchable, ensconced in wealth and influence, yet the walls of his empire were showing cracks that only Aisha had the patience to observe and exploit. Surveillance feeds scrolled relentlessly across multiple monitors, capturing meetings, gestures, whispered words, all catalogued meticulously. Even minor gestures, a flicker of hesitation, a sip of a drink delayed, a hand resting too long on a document, became evidence, ammunition in a battle fought not with guns or fists, but with perception, information, and timing. Tunde and Ngozi, allies loyal yet increasingly conflicted, navigated the fine line between involvement and exposure. Every movement they made was a dance of loyalty and risk. They intercepted messages about offshore accounts, transactions masked as investments, and strings of power tethered to political favors. Wealth in Lagos was not just money. It was leverage, it was secrets, it was reputation, it was leverage that could topple dynasties if wielded correctly. Aisha catalogued it all, creating a mental map that extended from the financial districts of Victoria Island to the informal networks of Surulere, Lekki, and beyond. Each street, each intersection, became part of a living chessboard. The city's rhythm, The honking cars, the rhythmic purr of motorcycles, the distant sound of music from open windows was more than background noise. It was an unintentional ally, masking footsteps, whispers, and subtle exchanges that could determine victory or disaster. Kelechi, unaware of the meticulous orchestration unfolding beyond his walls, continued his evening routine: calls with political allies, discussions with business partners, and discreet inspections of security measures he considered foolproof. Yet he did not account for Aisha's meticulous attention to detail, her ability to read human behavior with precision, nor her network of operatives who could exploit the smallest inconsistency. The tension escalated as Aisha infiltrated a private gathering held at one of Lagos' high-end hotels. Glittering lights reflected off marble floors and crystalline chandeliers, guests murmuring and mingling, unaware of the undercurrents flowing beneath their laughter. She positioned her allies strategically, observers blending seamlessly with waitstaff, security personnel, and other attendees, each capturing movements, gestures, conversations, and reactions. Every smile, every handshake, every casual remark could become leverage. Kelechi, ever vigilant, noted subtle disturbances, a glance that lingered too long, an absence of someone expected, the minutiae of social cues he had long relied upon to assert dominance. Yet he misjudged the precision and patience of Aisha's operation. The first twist emerged subtly, an unanticipated betrayal from within his trusted circle. A former confidant, persuaded by Aisha's insights and coaxed by subtle manipulations, allowed critical information to leak, exposing vulnerabilities previously hidden. The revelation did not unfold with shouting or confrontation, but with small inconsistencies: a delay in a reply, a missing document, a gesture that seemed innocuous yet spoke volumes. The psychological tension mounted. Each participant, from allies to rivals, operated under layers of deception, loyalty, and suspicion. Trust was a fragile commodity, traded carefully, questioned constantly. In this intricate web, Aisha maneuvered with both elegance and ruthlessness, orchestrating interactions so that truth and falsehood coexisted, leaving Kelechi to navigate uncertainty while believing he retained control. As midnight approached, Lagos transformed. The streets emptied of some crowds yet filled with late-night revelers, music spilling from clubs, neon reflections dancing on puddles, and the occasional sirens slicing through the air. Every environmental detail was leveraged. Aisha's team tracked Kelechi's movements from building shadows, rooftops, and vehicles, feeding real-time intelligence that allowed her to anticipate actions and reactions. Love, subtle yet powerful, threaded through the narrative. Tunde's commitment to Aisha extended beyond loyalty. Subtle glances, whispered confirmations, and protective gestures deepened the stakes. Each emotional entanglement risked exposure, yet it also amplified the human drama, intensifying the suspense, creating empathy and anticipation for the viewer. Betrayal continued to weave through the evening. Allies who had been assumed loyal revealed hidden motives, opportunism colliding with fear, greed challenging principle. Kelechi attempted countermoves, adjusting tactics in response to partial information, yet every adjustment played into the careful choreography Aisha had constructed over weeks. As the night climaxed, events converged toward a delicate confrontation in a private penthouse overlooking the lagoon. City lights shimmered beneath, the sound of distant traffic blending with waves lapping against the shore. Conversations unfolded with layers of hidden meaning, subtle manipulations, and unspoken threats. Each word, each gesture, each glance carried weight, with consequences extending far beyond the room. Aisha's meticulous preparation ensured that revelations would emerge organically. Kelechi, perceiving himself in control, failed to recognize the orchestrated precision surrounding him. By the early hours, the ramifications of decisions made in whispers, gestures, and clandestine exchanges reverberated across Lagos elite circles. Wealth, love, trust, and betrayal intertwined, leaving a trail of suspense, anticipation, and intrigue that would sustain the narrative for hours to come. Aisha, poised atop the rooftop terrace, looked across the city with calm determination. Her orchestration of events, blending courage, intelligence, and patience, set in motion outcomes that would challenge Kelechi's control, expose hidden truths, and keep the audience on edge, their eyes fixed on every movement, waiting for the next revelation in a story of ambition, love, and calculated revenge. The first light of dawn seeped reluctantly over Lagos, brushing the high-rise towers with a pale gold, reflecting off the lagoon and the glass facades of Victoria Island. Streets were waking, vendors opening their stalls, okadas weaving through traffic, yet beneath the surface, unseen currents of power, deception, and ambition swirled. Aisha's plans had already begun to unfold, ripples of consequence cascading through the city's elite, a carefully constructed domino sequence that no one yet understood. The events of the previous night had left fractures in Kelechi's network. Former allies now hesitated, distrust sparking in subtle glances and half-smiles. Every movement he made was shadowed by uncertainty, every decision weighed against hidden threats that had grown from seemingly innocuous seeds planted by Aisha. She moved silently through the streets, her presence invisible yet omnipresent, tracing patterns, gathering whispers, intercepting signals of intent. Messages meant to reassure, gestures meant to intimidate, all fell under her scrutiny. Every layer of deception was catalogued, every lie and omission noted and filed in a mental ledger that extended beyond immediate comprehension. The city's pulse, the honking of buses, the distant roar of the third mainland bridge, the sporadic laughter from street corners, served as a backdrop to her meticulous choreography. She infiltrated meetings disguised as social calls, her allies embedded in positions that allowed access without suspicion. Phones were monitored, conversations decoded, alliances tested and retested. Love threaded through the story still, delicate but unbreakable in its intensity. Tunde's devotion to Aisha continued to fuel strategic decisions, yet it was tested repeatedly. He navigated the dangerous currents of loyalty and ambition, balancing protection with operational necessity, knowing that a single misstep could unravel everything. Betrayal continued to thread its venom. A supposed confidant, swayed by bribes or promises, revealed a fragment of critical intelligence, yet it was only a piece in the intricate tapestry Aisha had woven. Each revelation forced recalculations, improvisation, and sometimes bold gambits executed with precision. Kelechi, blinded by confidence, continued to operate under the illusion of control. His wealth, influence, and past successes had created an aura of invincibility that now worked against him. He failed to account for the human unpredictability Aisha manipulated expertly. Subtle pressure applied to ego, fear of exposure, desire for advancement, all leveraged to bend circumstances to her advantage. The tension escalated when a clandestine meeting at a secluded rooftop lounge provided an arena for confrontation without spectacle. Aisha, fully aware of cameras, surveillance, and prying eyes, orchestrated the encounter so that appearances and reality diverged. Words were exchanged with precision, gestures loaded with meaning, and glances carrying unspoken threats. Kelechi believed he understood the dynamics, yet he was guided subtly, maneuvered into revealing more than he intended, unaware of how much Aisha already controlled. Wealth remained central, not just as currency but as leverage. Financial records, hidden accounts, and investments previously concealed came into play, exposed at the right moment to shift loyalties, create doubt, and destabilize perceived power. The city's infrastructure, the traffic patterns, the boat schedules on the lagoon, the timing of morning deliveries, was used to conceal movements, facilitate discreet meetings, and orchestrate exits with minimal detection. Each ally, each pawn, each participant played a role in a larger game, their awareness often limited to immediate objectives, never grasping the full scope. As the sun rose higher, tension escalated. Unexpected betrayals emerged from corners long assumed loyal. Subtle manipulations, forged documents, intercepted messages, and unanticipated encounters combined to create an intricate ballet of suspense. Every step taken by Kelechi was observed, every reaction catalogued. He began to suspect, but suspicion alone was insufficient. By the time he attempted to regain initiative, momentum had shifted decisively, and Aisha's influence permeated the network, unseen but potent. Emotional stakes intertwined with operational ones. Trust, love, and ambition collided, creating layers of suspense that demanded continuous vigilance. Decisions were no longer purely tactical. They carried moral weight, tested loyalties, and forced confrontations with hidden desires and fears. The psychological pressure weighed on every character, driving actions that were unpredictable yet entirely coherent within the narrative Aisha controlled. By midday, the ramifications of prior nights and early hours crystallized. Lekki faced situations where previous alliances crumbled under scrutiny, where wealth could not shield from exposure, and where decisions had consequences beyond immediate comprehension. Aisha's meticulous orchestration ensured that even seemingly random events aligned perfectly with her ultimate goal: to expose deception, manipulate outcomes, and assert control without ever appearing overtly dominant. The narrative stretched beyond physical confrontations into psychological and emotional warfare, where every gesture, every pause, every unspoken word could tip the balance. As Lagos hummed around them, oblivious to the undercurrents shaping lives and fortunes, Aisha orchestrated final sequences that would redefine relationships, challenge ambitions, and alter the course of all involved. Each action, each revelation, each subtle maneuver intensified suspense, drawing the audience into a world where love, betrayal, wealth, and ambition intertwined, where the city itself became both stage and participant in a tale as human as it was cinematic, leaving viewers entranced, their anticipation perpetually engaged, unable to predict what would unfold next. The afternoon sun beat down on Lagos, reflecting off the high-rise glass, shimmering on the lagoon, catching in the metal of street vendors' carts and the polished surfaces of luxury cars that threaded through congested traffic. In this heat, the city seemed alive, almost sentient, every honk, shout, and footstep part of a rhythm unseen yet felt by those who knew how to read it. Aisha moved through this environment with calculated grace, aware that visibility was a weapon as much as concealment. Each interaction, each glance, each whispered word was a piece of the puzzle, designed to manipulate perception and provoke reactions without revealing her hand. Tunde followed discreetly, his presence both shield and silent enforcer, aware that every step he took alongside her carried weight beyond the immediate. He could anticipate danger, yet he also knew that unpredictability was part of the game. Lekki, increasingly tense, operated under the illusion of control. His offices, his estates, his carefully curated social networks, all presumed shields against exposure, were now arenas where miscalculation could lead to catastrophic loss. Subtle shifts in loyalty became visible only to those patient enough to observe the patterns: a hesitant nod, a delayed response, a fleeting expression of doubt. These were the breadcrumbs Aisha left, guiding the story while remaining invisible to those untrained in reading them. The city itself became a backdrop for human drama, streets a chessboard where every car, pedestrian, and building could be leveraged strategically. Meetings were arranged in cafes, boutiques, and secluded corners of high-rise offices, each carefully chosen for acoustic and visual advantages. Conversations carried multiple layers of meaning. A joke might conceal a warning, a compliment might mask a threat. Wealth, displayed ostentatiously or subtly, functioned as currency not merely of money but of influence, a tangible measure of power that could bend intentions and decisions when deployed at the right moment. Meanwhile, tension within Lekki's circle grew. Long-standing allies, now exposed to Aisha's subtle manipulations, began questioning loyalties. Small financial inconsistencies, minor errors in communication, and inexplicable changes in behavior were threads pulled carefully by Aisha to unravel trust. The cracks widened imperceptibly at first, then visibly, until hesitation replaced certainty, suspicion replaced confidence, and every decision became a potential trap. Emotional stakes intertwined seamlessly with tactical ones. Tunde's love for Aisha remained steadfast, yet the intensity of their situation forced constant vigilance. He negotiated risk, weighed exposure, and protected her while navigating the unpredictable landscape of human ambition. Moments of intimacy, glances, brief touches, shared smiles, served as reminders of what was at stake and why the meticulous orchestration mattered beyond mere strategy. Lekki's attempts to reclaim authority faltered. Each maneuver he executed was anticipated or countered, often before he even realized the breach had occurred. Surveillance, intelligence gathering, and timing combined into a network of subtle dominance that was nearly imperceptible, yet total. The orchestration extended beyond individuals. Vendors, security personnel, and even casual passers-by were observed, catalogued, and, when necessary, leveraged to create cover or misdirection. Timing became a weapon. Every delay, every acceleration, every intersection was a tool to manipulate perception and outcome. By late afternoon, stakes escalated dramatically. A confrontation loomed, orchestrated with precision. The location, a secluded rooftop overlooking the lagoon, was chosen for visual control, acoustic advantage, and the psychological impact of exposure. The air was thick with tension. Every shadow seemed a participant, every distant sound a potential threat. Kelechi, unaware of how closely his movements were monitored, arrived confident, asserting authority while remaining unaware of the meticulous traps set by Aisha. Words were exchanged with a veneer of civility, yet beneath the surface, currents of threat, manipulation, and revelation churned. Financial power, long regarded as unassailable, now served as bait. Aisha revealed select truths and withheld others, leveraging partial information to provoke errors and self-exposure. Betrayal, a constant undercurrent, became a visible force. Allies who had appeared loyal shifted subtly, their allegiances swayed by fear, greed, or perception of advantage. The psychological landscape was treacherous. Every choice carried layered consequences. Aisha's orchestration ensured that even missteps played into her broader strategy, reinforcing her influence and destabilizing Kelechi's confidence. As the sun dipped, casting long shadows across Lagos, the city seemed to hold its breath. Ordinary activity continued. The distant roar of traffic, street hawkers closing stalls, children returning from school. But in the higher stakes of elite conflict, the rules of engagement were different, invisible to the uninformed observer. Every character's motivations, intentions, and vulnerabilities were now fully entwined in a complex tapestry where anticipation, deception, and human emotion intersected. By nightfall, outcomes had shifted decisively. Kelechi's attempts to consolidate control were thwarted subtly yet irrevocably. Aisha's maneuvers ensured that love, loyalty, and betrayal coexisted in tension, creating suspense that was both psychological and tangible. The city's heartbeat, the incessant sound of Lagos life, continued uninterrupted, masking a profound and invisible shift in power. Tunde remained vigilant, guarding both Aisha and the narrative she commanded, understanding that final moves were imminent and that the culmination of careful planning, emotional stakes, and strategic manipulation would define the endgame. In this dance of ambition, wealth, love, and betrayal, each decision reverberated with consequences. Each revelation reshaped reality, and each moment drew the audience deeper into a suspenseful labyrinth from which there was no easy escape, leaving them captivated, anxious, and utterly unable to predict what would come next. Night in Lagos did not simply fall. It descended with weight, settling over the city like a thick velvet cloth soaked in secrets. The streets, earlier pulsing with the frantic rhythm of traffic, generators, arguments, laughter, horns, street vendors, hawkers weaving between cars, suddenly shifted into a slower, heavier frequency. Something about the darkness made everything sharper, quieter, more dangerous. Aisha felt it, that electricity in the air that Lagos carried at night, when the city's true face emerged. She moved through the shadows with the deliberate grace of someone who understood every hidden corridor of power, every unwritten rule, every unspoken warning. Her steps were soundless, her presence measured, her mind a storm of calculations, connections, motives, faces, lies, alliances, and betrayals stitched together into a map that only she could read. Every name carried weight. Every gesture contained a signal. Every silence carried intention. Lagos was a city where ambition breathed, where the wealthy hunted one another in quiet rooms while the streets outside burned with noise. Tonight, Aisha stepped fully into that battlefield, not as prey, but as a strategist shaping an outcome that no one else could predict. Tunde followed at a distance close enough to protect yet far enough to let her operate. His eyes scanned constantly, corners, shadows, balconies, rooftops, reflections in glass, blind spots. His instincts were not trained but born, carved into him by life, by Lagos, by the understanding that danger here was not a distant possibility but a constant companion. He noticed the men lingering too long at the bar of the private lounge, the security guard whose uniform was slightly different, the woman pretending to check her phone while watching their movements in reflective surfaces. Tunde did not breathe normally. He breathed in assessments. He breathed in threats. He breathed in danger. And the more he breathed, the more he realized something else. Tonight was no ordinary maneuver. Tonight was a turning point. Kelechi, on the other hand, had begun to feel his empire tremble beneath his feet. The subtlety of the shift terrified him. It wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It was calculated, silent, almost elegant. The kind of downfall that began with whispers, not with explosions. The kind of downfall orchestrated by someone who understood human behavior with frightening accuracy. He had underestimated Aisha. Everyone had underestimated her. Her calm, her quiet intelligence, her gentle demeanor had fooled even him into thinking she was just another beautiful woman in Lagos' dizzying cycle of wealth and attention. But beauty was the last thing she weaponized. She weaponized silence, insight, timing, and tonight she was orchestrating something far larger, far more sophisticated than Kelechi had ever prepared for. The night deepened as they all converged into a private rooftop lounge in Ikoyi, the kind of place where glass walls reflected the skyline, where the wealthy whispered their darkest secrets over champagne. Men with money and women with influence drifted through the air like smoke. Everyone was trying to watch without appearing to watch. Everyone was pretending to relax while assessing who would rise and who would fall. Aisha positioned herself with perfect precision. She didn't stand in the center like someone seeking attention. She didn't stand in the shadows like someone avoiding it. She found the exact place where every influential person would be forced to see her whether they wanted to or not. She became the pulse of the room without speaking. The first move came from a politician's son, arrogant, loud, entitled, thinking he could intimidate her with charm and power. Aisha let him talk. She let him boast. She let him underestimate her. She let him fall directly into the trap she had set hours earlier, a trap woven from small conversations she had initiated throughout the week, conversations he didn't even remember because he hadn't been paying attention. But she had. She always paid attention. Another shift in the room. A business magnate whose investments were tied directly to Kelechi began to pull back, leaning closer to Aisha, asking questions with guarded intrigue. Aisha watched his eyes, measured his pauses, and pushed exactly the right pressure points. Fear, uncertainty, greed, in calibrated doses that slowly repositioned him away from Kelechi's orbit. Tunde saw all of this unfolding not as chaos but as art. Every gesture from Aisha was precise, controlled. Every silence was timed. Every half-smile meant something. Every refusal to respond meant something more. As the night thickened, Kelechi finally arrived, flanked by two men whose confidence came from their ability to intimidate rather than think. He scanned the room and felt it immediately. The shift, the quiet withdrawal of power, the way conversations lowered when he approached. He saw eyes flicking toward Aisha instead of him. And for the first time, fear pricked his chest. Aisha did not look at him. That was the most devastating move of all. The night rippled outward. Deals formed. Alliances whispered. Aisha dismantled Kelechi piece by piece without raising her voice, without making a scene, without any visible aggression. Her power was invisible but overwhelming, a tidal wave disguised as a gentle tide. Betrayal drifted through the room like a perfume, subtle yet intoxicating. Men who had been loyal to Kelechi began offering their business cards to Aisha. Women who once envied her suddenly aligned with her. Powerful individuals recalibrated their loyalty not through words but through the tilt of their attention. Meanwhile, outside on the balcony under dim golden lights, Tunde intercepted 3 separate threats: a disguised photographer, a planted informant, and a man pretending to be drunk who was moving far too close to the VIP section. Each was neutralized with quiet elegance, a redirected conversation, a subtle warning, a casual yet calculated confrontation. Tunde moved like a shadow designed for a single purpose: protect Aisha's ascent. Midnight split into two, becoming a deeper, heavier night that wrapped itself around Lagos with intent. Aisha took control of the narrative so smoothly that no one could pinpoint the moment it happened. Kelechi watched as everything he once controlled drifted out of his grasp. People he funded, people he protected, people he made. They all shifted, quietly, almost apologetically, toward her orbit. And the worst part? Aisha never once acknowledged him. By 2 a.m., the battle was over even though no one spoke of defeat. Aisha walked out first, unhurried, untouched, victorious without declaring victory. Tunde followed, scanning all angles with lethal focus. Kelechi remained standing in the lounge, surrounded by people who pretended not to see his downfall unfolding in real time. Lagos continued humming below, unaware that its power map had shifted dramatically in a single night. But Aisha knew. Tunde knew. And deep inside, Kelechi knew too. This was only the beginning. This was the calm before the collapse. This was the night Lagos would remember, even if it never learned why. Lagos rose beneath a slow, golden morning haze, the kind that softened the edges of buildings while sharpening the edges of consequence. The city breathed in layers, Danfo horns echoing from Ohoda to CMS, generators grumbling awake in estates across Lekki, Amala joints lifting shutters as if nothing monumental had shifted overnight. But somewhere above the noise in the private silence of a penthouse wrapped in early light, Aisha stood like someone who had just rewritten the foundations of an entire social order and was now watching the city wake up to the world she had engineered. Her reflection in the glass barely moved, but her eyes tracked every movement below: the clusters of commuters, the slow build of traffic, the quiet hum of transactions already beginning long before offices opened. Lagos was alive, but it didn't yet know how deeply she had rearranged its pulse. Tunde stood behind her, silent but alert, the kind of quiet that wasn't emptiness but calculated presence. His eyes scanned for threats she couldn't see, but both of them knew the real threats were never physical, never guns, never hired hands, never whispered plans in dark corners. The real danger had always been ambition disguised as loyalty, love disguised as leverage, power disguised as partnership. Kelechi woke up miles away, drenched in sweat despite the cool air conditioning of his mansion, replaying every misstep, every overlooked sign, every subtle shift he had dismissed. The empire he believed untouchable had shifted beneath him while he slept, and now the people he had considered pawns had changed positions so quietly he barely recognized the board. Calls started coming in, first from business partners, then from political acquaintances, then from personal connections who suddenly spoke with a tone he recognized too well: distance, doubt, calculation. Everyone was adjusting to a new center of gravity. He knew instantly who had rotated the axis. Meanwhile, Aisha made her first silent move of the morning, not through words, but through absence. She remained unreachable long enough to let speculation simmer. Influence in Lagos wasn't only about visibility. It was about timing, silence, withholding access until the desire for it peaked. Her phone vibrated continuously. Offers, apologies, subtle requests, but she ignored them, letting tension accumulate like humidity before a storm. By late morning, the consequences of her night-long orchestration began to surface everywhere at once. A politician subtly shifted his allegiance. Two rival business factions that once relied on Kelechi quietly rerouted their trust toward her. A quiet rumor began threading through the upper circles of Lagos society, an unprovable one, the kind that destroys reputations faster than truth ever could. And it all spread without Aisha ever making a call. Lagos feeds on perception. She fed the city exactly what it craved. Tunde watched her as she navigated the room with quiet certainty, every movement intentional, every silence purposeful. His loyalty deepened not out of desperation or infatuation but from witnessing the scale of her foresight. She had turned betrayal into fuel, danger into leverage, chaos into architecture. Their dynamic became the emotional backbone of the narrative, love expressed not in softness, but in intertwined ambition. By noon, The ripple effects became waves. Kelechi rushed to reinforce his alliances, only to discover that influence had shifted with surgical precision. The people closest to him were no longer predictable, some too afraid to stand with him, others waiting to see whether he would collapse or adapt. The wealth he thought was his anchor became unstable, no longer a fortress but a liability. Aisha's strategy had transformed resources into weapons long before he even sensed the battle. She moved through the day with a quiet authority, orchestrating events without exertion. Meetings were arranged in unassuming locations, cafes hidden behind bookstores, private lounges inside hotels with unmarked doors, penthouses no one would associate with her. Each conversation was deliberate. Each participant felt like they were being given access to something rare, unspoken, powerful. And every agreement they made bound them tighter to the reality she constructed overnight. The story deepened with emotional tension, her devotion to Tunde, his protective instincts, and the way their unspoken bond shaped every decision. Their love wasn't romantic softness. It was strategic intimacy, loyalty sharpened into strength. Lagos continued its chaotic rhythm, hawkers shouting at car windows, okadas weaving through impossible gaps, market women arguing over prices, musicians blasting speakers from shopfronts. But beneath the noise, the city's elite moved with unusual caution, sensing the shift but unable to articulate it. Aisha and Tunde spent the afternoon in motion, unmarked cars, quiet corridors, private elevators, making appearances only where necessary, leaving silence where mystery served them more. By evening, the transformation was irreversible. Kelechi's attempts to regain footing fell apart in real time. People avoided his calls. Meetings were cancelled. Promises dissolved. Even the ones who once depended on him now acted with the hesitancy of those preparing to abandon a sinking ship. And all of it happened without Aisha ever confronting him directly. That was her brilliance. Influence without noise. Control without spectacle. Victory without visibility. As night returned, Lagos glittered again, unaware of the complete redrawing of its invisible power map. Aisha and Tunde stood together on a quiet balcony as the city sparkled beneath them, each light representing a life, a decision, a consequence shaped by what they had done. No explosions. No public downfall. No drawn-out confrontation. Instead, a quiet shift, subtle yet absolute. The kind that leaves viewers breathless, imagining the next chapter, replaying the details, analyzing every silent move, craving the continuation of a story fueled by ambition, love, betrayal, wealth, and the unrelenting mystery of a city that never stops pulsing. Lagos slept beneath them, unaware that it now beat to a rhythm Aisha created. The story ended not with closure, but with tension suspended, an invitation, a provocation, a promise that nothing was truly over, and everything was still possible.